They have done an excellent job catering to their Christian population. They've just been they've been very fair to people of all ethnic backgrounds. And one thing very important about Syria is the last country to have a population, even though it's a small population, of people that still speak the Aramaic language, which is the the language that Christ used. And Christians in Syria are something like 20-30%, and they're a minority, but they're well represented, and they are, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and you can do your own research on this, they are the original Christians. I mean, going back to the days of Jesus, so many amazing things in the history of Christianity happened in Syria, in Damascus, in all these other great places, and countries like Saudi Arabia and in Afghanistan and Pakistan, they don't allow Christianity hardly, and when it's allowed, it's oppressed. Even Iran, it's oppressed. Lebanon and Syria are the only two where Christians can really have a say and make an impact. And, just for that alone, I salute the Syrian government for taking care of the Christian population. And Bashar's brother died. Bashar was hastened back to Syria to take over for to be groomed to take over for his father in case of his father's death. Well, Bashar eventually did become president, I believe in the year 2000, maybe 2001, I might be wrong, and he has introduced great reforms to the country of Syria. Every Syrian that I've talked to has not only said he's a good president, but they've said he's an excellent president and an excellent person. And I've never met the guy. I can't personally vouch for him. I can't say whether, he's really genuine in everything he says, but I think he really does want to hold Syria together. He wants to protect the rights of all people in Syria, and he himself is a religious minority. Bashar Al Assad and his family are Alawite Shias, which is a incredibly small minority in the Muslim world. I mean, it's like 1% of Muslims and maybe 10% of Syrians. And of course, having that background, being a minority, you trust your constituents, you trust your fellow believers, you trust your brothers, and the Alawite community and Bashar al-Assad has been seen as synonymous to these rebel and jihadist groups, which have targeted them number one for killings, torturings, executions, the worst things imaginable, the absolute worst things imaginable have happened to these people. And right after the Alawites is the Christians, and the Christians are being persecuted in Syria like never before. And it's almost a shame because the entire Western world says these rebels, these moderate rebels, they're gonna save Syria. Well, on the news today, I had just heard that the last bastion of Free Syrian Army fighters who were allied with Al Qaeda to begin with have they claimed have been defeated, but more likely they just decided to join al-Nusra, which is one of the two largest Islamic jihadist groups in Syria, the other being ISIL, or the Islamic State, whatever one would decide to call it. So basically what I want to say is, if you've never been to Syria and you've never talked to a Syrian and you don't know anything about the situation, don't claim to support people like Barack Obama and people like John McCain that said we should support more rebels and more airstrikes. The thing is, these ISIL people and these al-Nusra people, they would have been defeated a year ago, years ago, if not for the funding given to them by Western allied Middle Eastern countries. They can cross, the ISIL can cross right over into the Turkish border and receive medical help. They receive money and weapons from the United States. They're driving around in brand new M1A1 Abrams tanks, while the Syrian army is using T-72s, which are tanks literally from the 70s. So, I mean, that's the overwhelming odds. ISIL, they are well equipped, and they're very repressive. And there was a myth going around where they were taking over these communities, and they were given Christians and Shias an opportunity to convert or die. And, you know, I have a place in my heart for everyone that chooses death over that. But the fact of the matter is, from inside sources inside of Syria, from someone I know that lives there, that option is no longer being given, and that Christians and Shias are commanded to renounce their faiths, and then they are executed. And that is it, period. And that is not just ISIL, that is al-Nusra, that is who are the, quote, moderate rebels, which are not moderate at all. There's nothing moderate about these guys. If they ever have existed to begin with, they were merely a front group for the U.S., Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Israel to funnel money and arms into Syria to fight against Bashar Al Assad, to destroy his regime. In the next part of this video, I'm going to focus on why the West would want Syria destroyed. And there's really two reasons. One is they're allies with Russia and Iran, which it doesn't even make sense why America hates Russia and Iran. It doesn't make any sense at all. But the American government hates the Russian government and the Iranian government. I am ethnic Russian. I come from a Russian background, you know. I'm not a first generation. I'm fourth or fifth generation, but I can tell you that Americans, we love Russian people. We love Iranian people. We have nothing against these people. They're humans to us. They are brothers to us, you know, especially for Christians, you know. You know, a lot of people criticize President Putin of Russia, but he has revived Christianity in a way that has not been seen since the Romanov dynasty, before communism, you know, and that alone is something to be held in high esteem. But there's also other things that he's done that have been vilified, which I do not totally agree with. But that is another video for another day. I'm not going to bring that up today. I'm not going to talk any more about Putin. Of course, he has done bad things. He is somewhat of a strong-armed dictator, as they call them, as is Bashar Al Assad. But I heard Bashar Al Assad do an interview on RT in 2012, and the way he talked about his own people and the way he talked about, you know, his country, is that he would fight there, you know, at least according to what he said. He says he would stay there and die rather than flee like other Middle Eastern leaders have done in the wake of rebellions. And I think that's brave. I think that's something to be commended if he really, you know, I don't think it'll come to that. I believe in my heart that the Syrian army will prevail, and that people can go back to their homes and rebuild, and someday Syria will be just as beautiful as it was before 2011. And, you know, that's my dream, but maybe or maybe not. But, you know, God has a plan. I'm sorry if I'm getting religious at all. Anyway, the last part I want to talk about is who is really defending the Christian community inside of Syria. And it is not moderate rebels. It is not the United States. It is not NATO Turkey. It is not Israel. It is the Syrian army. They are the only force protecting neighborhoods. They are the only force that are, you know, they do not follow Sharia law, that are not forcing any kind of religious laws or their religious beliefs upon anybody. And they're not beheading people and crucifying people for their beliefs. You know, they are, and there are many Christians in the SAA, the Syrian Arab Army, and they are fighting side by side along with their Shia and Alawa and even Sunni brothers in arms. You know, that's how one of my friends framed it. They're brothers in arms, and dogmatic differences just don't really mean anything. I mean, it might mean something to people on earth, but I don't think that it means anything to God. I don't. You know, that's just my personal belief. You know, that pretty much concludes what I'm trying to say here. That there is, in my opinion, a Western plot to bring down countries like Syria so that they can impose a jihadist state in which the United States can fight a never-ending war with. It will be airstrikes after airstrikes until eventually, when the airstrikes aren't working, that they'll start sending in troops. That's been their plan all along, just like they did in Iraq, killing 1 million Iraqis, spending 10 trillion American taxpayer dollars that they had no right to spend. You know, that's what they want to do to Syria. I don't believe that it will happen. I believe that the Syrian army and Bashar Al Assad and all the brave people defending that country will prevail, and that no evil could possibly come against them because God is on their side. And that is all I have to say today. Thank you very much for your time. Manchevsky, out.